How is it that those bees we see, and simply dismiss as just bees, manage to run an entire hive as if they were a single organism without any sound, writing, or even sign language? Let's say you're in your garden or out in nature. You're holding a cup of tea, and your gaze is fixed on that single tiny bee flitting among the lavender flowers. That same bee was actually there this morning too. It lands on the same flower, lingers for a moment, and then you watch it as if it were just part of the ordinary scenery. After all it's doing is collecting nectar, right? But now that bee is heading back to its hive, and you lose sight of it. You realize this a few minutes later. 5, 10, 20 more bees are actually swarming toward that same cluster of lavender from the same direction. None of them returned there randomly, as we might have assumed. Someone whispered to them, that is, communicated with them in some way. So how does this telling work? Without a single mouth opening, without even a sound being made. Tonight, as you sit in front of the TV, the hive might seem completely silent and inactive in the darkness. Yet inside, thousands of worker bees are essentially drawing a map for one another through the vibrations of their bodies. Some of them, in a space no bigger than a coin, will be transmitting information about distance and direction by creating vibrations with a precision of 1/10 of a second. Meanwhile, in a corner, the hive's queen, the one who rules over everything, will be emitting a chemical signature invisible to the human eye, ensuring the hive breathes in unison. Welcome back to the Bees Around Us channel. Before you leave, I'd like you to subscribe, because this silent world in your garden harbors a communication network far more complex than it appears. Stay tuned until the end, because the final topic we'll cover is a true democracy, where the hive's survival is decided by unanimous vote. So let's jump right into Item 1. 1. Bees can communicate through vibrations. Worker bees share much more than just the simple buzzing sound we hear. In fact, they move around in a small area on the comb and wiggle their abdomens rapidly. Apologists refer to this behavior as the waggle dance. In other words, a bee dances by tracing a figure-8 path. The angle of the dance helps indicate which direction to go relative to the sun, while its duration helps convey how far away the destination is. If the hive is dark and crowded, visibility is nearly impossible. That's why other bees follow the dance not by watching it, but by touching it with their antennae. Workers that gather nearby to watch the dance feel the vibrations by touching the dancer's abdomen, thereby recreating the route in their own bodies. The intensity of the dance is not without purpose. Of course, it has a meaning. The richer the source and the more abundant the flowers, the longer the dance is repeated. A bee that finds a poor source quietly withdraws after a few rounds, and no one continues to follow it. A bee that finds a rich source, however, can dance for minutes on end, attracting a constant stream of new spectators throughout that time. In this way, the hive spontaneously steers itself toward the best opportunity without any central leader. For you, this means the following: that single bee you see in your garden is actually delivering a coordinate report when it returns to the hive. At the same time, it conveys information about direction, distance, and how valuable the source is, all at once. A small crowd has gathered around that lone visitor. Without a word or any communication, they all set off, simply following the vibration as if it were a law. 2. They leave a scent mark. Actually, that vibration alone isn't enough to convey everything. What I mean is that some messages are chemical in nature. Bees release scent molecules called pheromones from various parts of their bodies, and these molecules can reach other bees through the air or by direct contact. When a worker bee senses danger, It secretes an alarm pheromone from a gland next to its stinger. This scent has long been studied with astonishment by apologists because it resembles the smell of a ripe banana, which has always seemed strange to them. Other bees that detect this scent immediately assume a defensive posture. Some prepare their stingers, while others fan out towards the hive entrance. This small, yet incredibly important signal from a single bee has the power to mobilize hundreds of bees in the hive simultaneously. Of course, pheromones aren't used solely for alarm purposes. When a bee discovers a rich source of nectar for the hive, it can leave a small scent marker there. This serves as an invisible signpost and guide for other bees. Some pheromones can linger in the air for hours, while others dissipate within minutes. Bees, of course, make clever use of this difference as well, because as the intensity of the scent fades over time, it conveys the answer to the question, how fresh is this information? Naturally, a new scent says, I just arrived here. At the same time, this information can indicate whether it is still new or already old. In fact, behind the peaceful and ordinary scene in your garden, an almost invisible alarm system stands constantly on alert. Without you even noticing, the bees can already warn one another, sending messages like, be careful or, it's safe here, stay calm. That silent atmosphere, where your eyes see nothing, seems to carry a layer of communication filled with dozens of different scents. 3. The queen bee possesses a silent authority. Here's the reality. In the center of the hive sits the queen bee, with a body larger than that of the worker bees. The queen bee does not give orders or make a sound. Instead, she emits a unique mixture of pheromones. This mixture is produced by glands in different parts of her body and is taken in directly by worker bees that approach her, either through direct contact or via their mouths. As these workers move around the hive, they pass this scent on to other bees. Thus, within hours, it spreads throughout the entire hive via a chain of mouth-to-mouth transmission. No bee receives a command, they simply carry the scent. As you can see, this scent mixture conveys the message, our queen is here and healthy to the hive. When the scent weakens or ceases, the worker bees notice it immediately. This realization occurs almost simultaneously among the hive's thousands of bees, because each link in the scent chain relays the information to the next with minimal delay. When the queen's absence is detected, the workers select specific larvae and feed them in a special way to initiate the process of raising a new queen. This is a quiet but determined response by the hive to secure its own future. Furthermore, the queen's scent not only signals her presence, but also shapes the hive's mood. When this scent is emitted strongly and consistently, the workers' urge to swarm is suppressed, and the hive operates at a calm and productive pace. When the scent weakens, however, this calm is disrupted. The workers become restless and may turn to searching for a new queen or preparing to swarm. In other words, the order you see in your hive depends on a constantly updated "everything's fine" report, emitted by a single, unseen body and carried by thousands of unseen touches. 4. They communicate through touch. Of course, bees sometimes use the simplest method, direct touch. Inside the hive, a worker bee touches another with its antennae to request a food sample. This is called begging behavior. The bee that is touched shares both food and information by offering a small drop of nectar from its mouth, because the taste, scent, and consistency of this drop reveal which flower outside is currently producing the most nectar. This tiny drop is like a taste sample that summarizes the current state of the garden outside. In addition, this exchange is not a one-time event. When a worker bee returns to the hive, it can pass the nectar drop to several other workers in succession, and they, in turn, can share this drop among themselves. Thus, the information brought by a single bee spreads to a large portion of the hive within minutes through a small chain reaction of tasting. In this process, the antennae function not only as tactile organs, but also as olfactory organs. The moment a worker bee touches another, it simultaneously assesses both the scent of the flower on the other bee and the taste of the nectar it has brought. Of course, there's another aspect to this. This constant exchange of tastes allows the hive to create a living taste map. Even if the flowers in your garden change from day to day, or even hour to hour, the hive stays up to date through this exchange. The most attractive flower in the morning may give way to another by the afternoon, and the hive notices this change almost instantly. Even if you don't pay attention to which flower in your garden attracts the most visitors that day, the bees have already decided which flower is today's favorite. And this decision has been shaped by hundreds of small interactions and taste-sharing exchanges, all without a single central authority. 5. They make decisions together. Most strikingly, the decisions the hive makes while searching for a new home are particularly remarkable. During swarming season, when the old hive becomes overcrowded, the queen and a large group of workers split off and set out to find a new location. This swarm forms a soft, trembling cluster, temporarily suspended from a tree branch. Hundreds of scout bees among them scatter in different directions, searching for hollows, cavities, and open spaces. Each scout assesses the size of the site it finds, the width of the entrance, and its protection from wind and moisture, as if inspecting it. Naturally, upon their return, each scout dances to indicate the site it has found, and this dance is identical to the waggle dance we just saw. But this time, the target is not a flower, but a future nest. A bee that has found a good site dances longer and more energetically. A bee that has found a poor option stops dancing quickly and withdraws silently. Some foragers, after watching another forager's dance, go to that location themselves to check it out with their own eyes, then return and begin dancing for the same spot. In this way, support for good options grows steadily, while poor options quietly fade away. Furthermore, within days, other bees gather around the scouts performing the strongest dance, begin to repeat the same dance, and eventually a threshold is crossed. When enough bees have danced for the same location, the entire colony unites around a single destination. No single bee makes a decision on its own, and no queen issues a command. The decision arises from the sum of thousands of small votes. The accumulation of countless repeated dances. Once the decision is made, the swarm suddenly springs into action and flies toward the chosen location as one unified body. Think of it this way. That quiet hive in your garden has, in fact, gone through exactly such a voting process in the past and chose its current location not through any central authority, but as the result of a collective decision made by hundreds of small dances. In addition to this, let's go back to the question, how do bees communicate with one another? The answer is not in a single language. That single bee was already preparing to carry a message when it landed on the lavender flower. Thousands of worker bees in the hive multiply that message by layering it with vibrations, scents, and touch. The queen bee keeps her finger on the hive's pulse without even moving. And right now, the bees outside might be conducting a silent vote on which flower is worth visiting, without you even knowing it. That garden silence you thought was empty was actually a conversation filled from end to end. Have you ever noticed a swarm of bees suddenly flocking to the same flower in your garden, but never wondered how it happened? You've been living alongside this for years. Now you know. See you in the next videos.